Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff with Walk and Talk with Jeff. It's another beautiful morning. Breeze is blowing. It's probably about 75 degrees out here on my morning walk. I've told you several times that I was a retired warden. I wanted to tell you how I got there. I started as a correctional officer when I was 19 years old at a minimum security prison. I worked there for about 4 years, and they was building a new prison fairly close to the one that I was at. And I transferred over to the medium security prison when it was built, and I worked there for about a year until I was promoted as a sergeant. Now, I just didn't get promoted as a sergeant right off. I went on several interviews. I say several, 3. I was interviewed 3 times for sergeant. Finally, on my 3rd time, I did make sergeant. 3rd time was a charm. And I worked as a sergeant there at that medium security prison for 5 years. And when I say I worked as a sergeant, I worked cell houses and segregation most of the time. I was not the administration baby. You know, you people who work in corrections, you know what I'm talking about. There was the people who always worked administration in the healthcare and never really dealt with a whole lot of inmates. I dealt with inmates my entire career. When I was promoted to lieutenant 5 years after being a sergeant, I was again assigned to the cell houses, assigned to the kitchen and gyms and yards and things like that. I dealt with inmates non-stop in my entire career. I worked as a lieutenant for about 5 years. Then I was promoted to captain, and I was a captain and a shift commander for about 5.5 years. And then I was promoted to chief of security, which was the major. After 2, and I worked there about 2.5 years, still at the medium security prison. Now, when I was there, I really enjoyed that job. That's probably my most favorite job I ever had. Had a great warden, great assistant wardens, and we had a real good working relationship with everybody. So I really liked that job. But however, they called me one day to report to the headquarters, and they appointed me as assistant warden of operations back over to the prison where I first started, which was the minimum security prison. Now, I worked there for about 13 months. In that meantime, while I worked there was an election in my state for governor. They changed politics. Well, oddly enough, I received a letter, and I say received, and I'll tell you how I got that letter here in just a minute, basically telling me that I was terminated. I was in an exempt position, worked at the pleasure of the director and the governor. So therefore, my job was being terminated, and thank you so much for what you did for us, but nevertheless, bye-bye. So I was fired, basically, on that day. And let me tell you how I got the letter. I was conducting lieutenant interviews at that particular prison, and they kept bugging me all day long. So you finish with those lieutenants' interviews? You about done with those lieutenants' interviews? The deputy director was there, and I thought it's kind of odd that the deputy director's there waiting on lieutenant interviews. Well, we finally got finished with all the interviews, and we appointed, suggested who we wanted for the lieutenant's job, and we promoted this lieutenant. I gave the warden all the paperwork, laid it on his desk, and right there with the deputy director, excuse me, as I was laying that on the desk, he was handing me a folded up fax letter, this deputy director was, and I'm going to tell you who he was in just a minute too. He hands me a folded up fax letter that said that my termination letter. Now, to tell you a little bit about this guy who handed me the letter, 2 weeks before that, he worked in maintenance. He was a terrible employee. He was on proof status, which means he never come to work, and he had to prove every time that he was sick. He had to bring in a doctor's slip because he never came to work. And while he was there, he was lazy. He didn't do anything. Well, come find out, he was tied up pretty tight with some of the people on his party who were at the top of the list. So anyway, he's the guy who handed me the letter. So I left, kind of with my head down. Thought it was the end of the world. It really wasn't, though. It was actually later on. I'll tell you a little bit about that too, as a blessing in disguise. We I finally decided that I needed to get another job. I want to stay in corrections because I thought maybe one day I'd be able to get back because I was still a young man. Excuse me. So what I did was I took a job in my county at the county jail as a correctional officer in the county jail. I worked there for about 12 years, and then politics changed, and suddenly I got a phone call again wanting me to come back to work as, yep, you guessed it, as an assistant warden of operations. Only this time over at the medium security prison. So I accepted the position again. Worked there for about 7 months as assistant warden, and then they promoted me as the warden at a maximum security prison where I ended my career. Now I tell you that story really just to tell you that I wanted you to know that I came from the bottom up. I wasn't the one night wonder. I wasn't the guy that they decided to go ahead and just promote and make me a warden from an officer. I followed chain of command. By doing that, it was beneficial for me, definitely, because it was beneficial for my pay, first of all, because I stepped out, they call them steps, and I stepped out in absolutely every rank that I was in. So I was making top money. And that's what you really want to do when you get into corrections. For all you younger guys out there who have aspirations to move up, that's fine, that's great. I love the fact when people, have got aspirations to move up, because it shows me that you like your job, So, and I'll tell you what, I had a major one time. I want to throw this little story in real quick. This major one time told me, said, I was 19 years old, and he called me into his office one day. He said, I know you're young. He said, but I want you to know something. He said, don't come to work every day worried about, how much you're making and all that stuff. Come to work and get involved in your job. I thought, well, that makes a lot of sense. He said, when you leave here every day, he said, feel satisfied that you accomplished something. Don't count your money while you're sitting in the cell houses, how much money that you're making. And I always took that philosophy with me. I always thought that was a very good philosophy. So, to get back on track with the story, I worked the cell houses most of the time in my life, kitchens, chow halls, as supervisors and as an officer. So, I just want everybody to know that stay patient while you're working in corrections, because patience is the virtue for sure. You're not going to get promoted every time that you put in. Trust me, I know. I've seen it happen 1,000 times while I was working. And I also did several hundred interviews for people who was trying to be promoted. So I just want you to know, especially if you're a young correctional officer, or if you're an officer who's been here 4 or 5 years, if you have aspirations to do something, do it. But do it the right way. Don't call on the street for some politician to give you the leg up, because first of all, you don't get any respect from the staff, and you don't get any respect from the inmates. So, the blessing in disguise that I want to tell you about, when I got fired and went to work for the county jail for a lot less money, I was driving a car, my own car, endless gas, when I worked for the state. Went to the county as a correctional officer, serving their food to them on the midnight shift. So I had a real change that happened to me. But you know what? I got up every morning, I put my boots on, and I went to work and I grounded out. That's just what I did. But during that time, my wife and I always had a dream that we wanted to do an antique mall. During that time that I was, I'll say, not working for that month and a half or so that I didn't have a job till I got hired with the county, we built an antique mall, and we built a big one, and it has been very successful. And without me being fired, without me being ambitious, without us having a dream, being fired was the best thing that happened to me ever. We was able to build this mall, make it a successful business. And we've been doing this mall now for 21 years, and we're still doing it. Matter of fact, that's where I'm going when I get finished walking, is I'm getting ready to go back to work. So I just want everybody to know, all the young officers out there, no matter what happens in your life, in your career, there's going to be a bright side, but you got to look for it. It's not just going to come up and bite you. You're going to have to look for it. It's out there. It's out there. And if corrections is not your gig, find something that you like, get out of corrections, and go do what you want to do. But if you like corrections, go for the gusto, man. Go for the gold. Go for any job that you want in that particular prison, or even in the whole agency around your whole state. So anyway, that's about all I got to say today. And I just want everybody to have a great day. And thank you for joining me on my walk this morning. I'm out.